Well, the NFL season is finally here, and that means it's time to attempt to turn our knowledge into some cold, hard cash. Let's try to do just that with this week's best bets. Only 3 games this week. Normally it'll be 4 or 5, but only chose 3. You know, the week 1 matchup's always very unpredictable for obvious reasons. Of course, if you'd like an opinion on any of the week 1 games, we have them all previewed here on the site, so just click around a little bit. I'm sure you'll be able to find the game you're interested in. Let's get to these 3 games that I like now, though, starting with the Washington Redskins traveling to Houston to face the Texans. Houston a 3-point favorite on BETDAQ, 45 the total in this game, and I like the Texans to cover here. I think the Texans are going to be a lot better than a lot of people think they're going to be this season. They only won 2 games last year, but they were a lot better defensively than people realize. Finished 7th in the league in total defense, and that defense should be even better this year thanks to a couple of nice additions. Most notably, number 1 overall pick, Jadeveon Clowney. He's going to play opposite J.J. Watt on that defensive line. Opposing quarterbacks are really going to have something to think about now because you're not going to be able to double team both of those guys. Don't forget about Pro Bowl linebacker Brian Cushing. You know, when people talk about this Texans defense, everybody, of course, talks about Watt, who's the best defensive player in the NFL. A lot of people now talking about Clowney as well, an athletic freak who will probably stumble into 20 sacks every year, assuming he stays healthy. Not many people talk about Brian Cushing. The Texans were a top 5 defense last year before Cushing went down, and the defense noticeably slipped without him in the lineup. He is a difference maker. He's back now. Houston is going to have one of the best front sevens in the NFL. Facing this Washington offense on Sunday, listen, I know it's the preseason. You can't put too much stock in the preseason. Have you seen the Redskins play this preseason? I mean, their number 1 offense has looked awful. Of course, they have a new coach this year, Jay Gruden, incorporating his system. Texans have a new coach for that matter also in Bill O'Brien. But Robert Griffin looked uncomfortable in what's going on in Jay Gruden's scheme. I'll put it this way. He looked more like the Robert Griffin of last year than he did his rookie season. And again, I know it's the preseason and you can't put any stock hardly in the preseason. And that's why these week 1 matchups it's the most unpredictable week of the year. It's part of the reason why I could only firmly decide on 3 games. However, I don't have faith in this Washington offense. And it's going to be tough for them to go on the road against this defense, against this front 7 in the first game in this new system and thrive. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Houston's really going to lock down the Redskins. And of course, the Redskins don't have a very good defense themselves. They're not particularly good against the run or the pass. Now, there's major questions as far as the Houston offense goes this season. Ryan Fitzpatrick, the starting quarterback. A lot of people sort of down on Fitzpatrick. I certainly don't think he's one of the 10 or 12 best quarterbacks in the NFL, but I guess I think he's a little better than some people think he is. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick, an adequate option at the quarterback position, he'll be much better than what the Texans had last year with Matt Schaub after he lost his confidence and then Case Keenum. Look, I like the Texans this season to challenge 500, maybe even sneak in, challenge for a wild card berth in the AFC. I do like them taking care of business at home today against the Washington Redskins. Think they're going to cover the 3. Next game I'd like to talk about, the Carolina Panthers traveling to Tampa to face the Bucs. Tampa a 2-point favorite on BETDAQ. I like the home favorite here as well. I'm on Tampa in this spot. Now, a lot of similarities to Houston here, I guess. Both teams were bad last season. Both teams with new head coaches. In Tampa's case, it's Lovie Smith. Smith, of course, made his bones in the NFL coaching defense. You go back and look at Smith's teams when he was a head coach for the Chicago Bears so many years, and before then when he was defensive coordinator at St. Louis. I mean, his teams have had good defenses literally every year. And of course, first year he leaves Chicago, what happens last season? The Bears finished 32nd, dead last in rushing defense. So if you don't think coaching makes a difference, you're not paying close enough attention. And Tampa has some serious talent on their defense. Some real talent in the front 7, starting with defensive tackle Gerald McCoy, who's a potential all-pro type player. And also a very talented secondary. So talent on every level of that Tampa defense. Now they have a coach who can really do something with it in Lovie Smith. I think Tampa's going to be very good on that side of the ball this season. Of course, there's major questions about their offense, specifically the offensive line. And we'll see how that plays out. Hey, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said that I was confident or felt good about the Tampa offense going up against that Carolina defense today. We know how stout that Carolina front 7 is. The back end of the Carolina defense, though, might be a little different this season. They only return 1 starter back there. Of course, Tampa loaded with skill position talent. Vincent Jackson, the rookie Mike Evans. If he could step up, that would really help the Bucs. They got a stable of running backs led by Doug Martin. I think they've got enough to put up some points on this Carolina defense, enough points to win the ball game, because I don't think the Carolina offense is going to be doing much at all. Cam Newton questionable for the game with a rib injury. Carolina very one-dimensional offensively, 29th in pass yards per game last season. Should be even worse, or at least not much better this year, because Newton has zero familiarity with his wide receivers. The Panthers, the only team since the 1971 AFL-NFL merger to begin a season without a single receiver on the roster who was on the roster the previous season. So, again, Carolina is going to be very one-dimensional on the offensive side of the ball again this season. I look for a low-scoring game in Tampa today. Of course, that's not breaking news. The total is 37.5, so everybody's looking for a low-scoring game. But I do like the Bucs in this spot to cover the 2. Final game that I'm on this week, Monday night game, the New York Giants on the road in Detroit. The Lions are a 5.5-point favorite on BETDAQ. I like the dog in this spot. I like the Giants getting the points. I think the Lions are overvalued. You know, the Lions have been overvalued for the last 2 years, really. I have lost a mint betting on the Detroit Lions. I think I'm finally starting to come around and see this team for what it really is. You know, they got some big names and their offense puts up some flashy numbers, but there's sort of a rot on the inside there. It starts with their secondary, for one. They haven't been able to stop anybody from passing the football. And you look at their roster this season, looks like they're going to struggle in the secondary once again. Eli Manning, I know he had a down year last year, but I think Eli Manning is going to bounce back with a really strong season in 2014. We've seen in his career before him have bad patches and bounce back with a good year. Still got some excellent wide receivers to work with there in New York. I think he's going to have a lot of success against this Detroit defense on Monday night. And Matt Stafford, even though, again, he puts up big numbers, I don't consider him trustworthy. He's not a guy who's trustworthy. Of course, the Detroit Lions, a pass-first offense, that somewhat one-dimensional in that regard. And the Giants were better on defense than you realized last season. I think they're going to have a top half of the league defense again this year. Wouldn't be surprised if the Giants won this game outright. I really like them plus 5.5. So there you have it. Those are my 3 games of this week 1 that are my favorite, my best bets. I like Houston -3 against the Washington Redskins, the Tampa Bay Bucs -2 against the Carolina Panthers, and on Monday night, I like the New York Giants plus 5.5 on the road in Detroit. I wish you best of luck, whatever you're going to do this week 1, just so long as your interests don't conflict with my interests.